Now let's talk about the biggest chronological headache in the multiverse, on Earth 10,005. In 1973, a fracture forms in this timeline, splitting it in two, and at the center of it is someone we haven't properly introduced yet, Raven. She's a mutant who can shift her appearance into anyone she looks at, down to the voice, the walk, everything. The world would come to know her as Mystique. But before all that, she was just a girl who grew up alongside Charles Xavier, practically his sister. She was there when Charles and Eric built their first team. She believed in the dream. But when the two men split apart after Cuba, Raven was pulled between them, and eventually, she stopped following either one. By 1973, she was on her own. And when she discovered that a military scientist named Bolivar Trask had been capturing and experimenting on mutants to build a fleet of giant robotic hunters called Sentinels, she didn't wait for permission. She found Trask, and she took him out. But her actions backfired. Trask became a martyr, and the government greenlit his Sentinel program in full force. Mystique was eventually captured, tortured, and experimented on. And here's the cruel irony. The very thing that made Raven special, her ability to shift into anyone, to adapt her body to anything, is exactly what they extracted from her. They reverse-engineered her DNA and built it into the Sentinels, giving the machines the ability to adapt in real time to any mutant power they encountered. Fire, ice, telepathy, it didn't matter. The Sentinels could analyze and counter anything thrown at them, just like Raven could become anyone she touched. The one gift that had always kept her alive became the thing that would doom her entire species. What followed was decades of escalation, until by the 2020s, those machines had driven mutant kind to the edge of extinction. We'll come back to how this timeline gets rewritten. In 1979, at the 3 Mile Island facility, James, who we've come to know as the Wolverine, reaches the end of a road that started years earlier. See, after the wars, Logan and Victor didn't just drift, they were recruited. A military colonel named William Stryker had been watching them for years. Two mutants who couldn't be stopped, who healed from anything, who had survived every battlefield since the Civil War. Stryker wanted them, and he built something around them. A black ops unit made up entirely of mutants. He called it Team X. Logan and Victor were the muscle, but they weren't alone. There was a teleporter named John Wraith, who could vanish and reappear anywhere in the blink of an eye. A technopath named Chris Bradley, who could control electronics with his mind. Agent Zero, a marksman who never missed a shot. Fred Dukes, built like a tank with strength to match. And then there was Wade Wilson, a mercenary with a pair of katanas and a mouth that never stopped running. Wade could deflect bullets with his swords, move faster than any normal human, and talk his way through, or into, any situation. He was skilled, reckless, and constantly getting on everyone's nerves, especially Victor's. Stryker used this team for missions no one was supposed to know about. Raids, interrogations, extractions in places the military would never officially touch. But over time, Logan saw what they were really doing. The missions got darker, civilians got caught in the crossfire. Victor was enjoying it too much, and Stryker didn't care about collateral damage as long as he got what he wanted. So Logan walked away. He tried to disappear. He settled somewhere remote, lived a quiet life as a lumberjack, fell in love with a woman named Kayla Silverfox. For a while, it looked like he might actually get to be normal, but Stryker had other plans. He sent Victor, Logan's own half-brother, to take Kayla out. Logan, consumed by rage and grief, went straight back to the one man he swore he'd never work with again. And that's exactly what Stryker wanted. Logan agreed to the Weapon X procedure. Let's talk about what actually happened to him in that room. But first, you need to understand what adamantium is. Remember those missions Stryker had the team running? One of them took Team X to Lagos, Nigeria, where Stryker was after something specific. A rock that fell from the sky carrying an unknown metal element unlike anything on Earth. That's what adamantium comes from. Stryker had the raw material extracted and developed into a metal alloy in military labs, classified, incredibly rare. Once it's been heated and cooled, it becomes virtually indestructible. Nothing on Earth can break it, scratch it, or melt it down again. Keep this in mind when we eventually get to Earth 616. The origin of adamantium is a completely different story, but that's for later. The Weapon X procedure involved heating liquid adamantium to extreme temperatures and injecting it directly onto Logan's bones while he was fully conscious. Every single bone in his body, his skull, his spine, his ribs, even the claws that grew from his hands, was coated in this metal. The only reason Logan survived is his healing factor, regenerating the tissue damage faster than the adamantium could destroy it. Any normal person would have been gone in seconds. When it was over, Logan wasn't just enhanced, he was nearly indestructible. His claws, once made of bone, were now razor-sharp adamantium blades that could cut through almost anything. His entire skeleton now bonded with adamantium. Logan flatlined. The generals watching from above thought it was over. The experiment had failed. But deep in that tank, submerged in water, Logan's healing factor was doing what it always does. His heart started again. And while Stryker stood over him thinking he was out cold, Logan heard every word. Stryker giving the order to erase his memory, to turn him into another weapon. Logan erupted out of that tank, claws out, and fought his way through the entire facility before they could touch his mind. He made it to a nearby farm, where an elderly couple, Travis and Heather Hudson, found him stumbling into their barn with nothing but his dog tags. They didn't ask questions. They gave him clothes, a meal, a place to sleep. But Stryker sent Agent Zero after him. The next morning, Zero found the farm and took out the couple. Innocent people, gone. Just because they helped Logan. That was the moment something shifted. Logan took Zero down, and over the radio he told Stryker exactly what was coming. After he finished with Victor, he was coming for Stryker next. But Logan didn't go in blind. He tracked down two of his old Team X brothers, Wraith and Dukes. That's where he learned that Victor was still working for Stryker, hunting down mutants and delivering them to a facility they called the Island. Stryker had been experimenting on mutants this whole time, and Victor was his collector. They pointed Logan to a man named Gambit, the only mutant who had ever escaped the island and lived to talk about it. Logan found Gambit in New Orleans, but Victor found them first, and Wraith didn't make it out. Gambit eventually agreed to take Logan to the island. That's how Logan ended up back at 3 Mile Island, and that's when he found out the truth. Kayla was alive. She had never been gone. Stryker had staged the whole thing. Kayla was a mutant herself, with the power of persuasion through touch, and Stryker had forced her to keep Logan close, to watch him, to make sure he stayed in line. In exchange, Stryker promised to release her sister, who he was holding captive. The love of Logan's life had been a mission. Every moment they shared, every quiet night in that cabin, Stryker had orchestrated all of it just to keep his most valuable weapon on a leash. Logan was gutted. He walked away. But then he heard Kayla scream. Victor had turned on her after Stryker refused to give him the adamantium bonding he'd been promised. Logan came back, beat Victor down, and this time, he had the power to finish it. But Kayla stopped him. She reminded him that he wasn't an animal, no matter what Stryker had tried to turn him into. Logan spared his brother. Then Logan and Kayla did something Stryker never expected. They started freeing the captured mutants. Young mutants, kids, people Stryker had been experimenting on in the basement of that facility. And that's when Stryker panicked. He activated his last resort, Weapon 11. While Logan had been living his quiet life, Stryker had been busy with the rest of Team X. And Wade Wilson, the loudmouth with the swords, had drawn the worst hand of all. Stryker had taken Wade's body and turned it into something unrecognizable. He called it Weapon 11, and the idea behind it was simple and horrifying. Take one body and stuff it with the powers of as many mutants as possible. Wolverine's healing factor, Cyclops' optic blasts, Wraith's teleportation, which allowed Stryker to control him remotely like a puppet. They even sewed his mouth shut. They gave him an adamantium skeleton and retractable blades in his arms. Wade Wilson was gone. What was left was a Frankenstein, a patchwork weapon with no will of its own. Stryker called him the Deadpool, a dead mutant with other mutants' powers pooled into him. If you're thinking this sounds nothing like the Deadpool we'll come to know later, you're right. This isn't him. The timeline gets rewritten, and when it does, Wade Wilson gets a very different story. But that's for much later. Weapon 11 blocked the exit. Logan had no choice but to fight through him. The battle moved to the top of a cooling tower, and Logan was losing. Until Victor came back. Not out of loyalty, not out of love, because as Victor put it, they're brothers, and nobody gets to end his brother except him. Together, they took Weapon 11 down, but before Logan could get out, Stryker was waiting with an adamantium round. He shot Logan in the head. Logan survived, his healing factor saved him, but the damage to his brain erased his memories. Kayla used her last bit of strength to command Stryker to walk until his feet bleed, and then she was gone, for real this time. Everything Logan had been, everything he had known, everyone he had loved, gone. From that moment on, Wolverine wandered the world with no idea who he really was.
That story picks back up at the turn of the century.
In the year 2000, a young girl from Mississippi named Marie, who had come to be known as Rogue, discovers her mutation the worst way possible. She kisses her boyfriend, and he drops, almost gone, just from her touch. That's what Rogue's power is. When she touches someone skin to skin, she pulls everything out of them. Their energy, their memories, their abilities. And if the person she touches is a mutant, she takes their powers too. Hold on too long and she could put someone in a coma, or worse. She can't control it, she can't turn it off. Imagine being a teenager and realizing you can never touch another person again without hurting them. Terrified, she runs away from home and crosses paths with Logan somewhere in Canada. Neither of them knows it yet, but their meeting sets everything in motion. They're ambushed on the road by Sabretooth, and yes, this is Victor Creed, Logan's half-brother. But neither of them recognizes the other. Logan's memory was wiped clean by that adamantium bullet, and Victor, well, the films never explain what happened to him between 3 Mile Island and now. The calculating brother we saw fighting alongside Logan is gone. What's left is something more feral, barely verbal, working as muscle for Magneto's Brotherhood. It's one of those things the films just never connected properly, so we're calling it what it is and moving on. 2 of Xavier's most trusted X-Men arrive just in time. Scott Summers, known as Cyclops, a mutant who fires powerful optic blasts from his eyes, and Aurora Monroe, known as Storm, who can control the weather itself. They bring Logan and Rogue to Xavier's school for gifted youngsters. Meanwhile, Eric, now fully Magneto, is preparing a plan on a scale no one sees coming. His logic is simple and terrifying. If the people in power hate mutants, then make them mutants. Turn the world's leaders into the very thing they fear, and they'll have no choice but to accept coexistence. He's built a machine that can emit a wave of radiation powerful enough to force mutate any human it touches. His target? The world leaders gathered for a summit on Ellis Island. His method? Use Rogue's absorption powers to fuel the device, since powering it himself nearly ended him during testing. What Magneto doesn't realize is that the process is unstable. Senator Kelly, his test subject, made it back to Xavier's school only for his body to reject the forced mutation entirely, dissolving before their eyes. Magneto's grand plan for equality would have been a sentence for every leader on that island. The X-Men race to Liberty Island, fight their way through the Brotherhood, and reach the top of the Statue of Liberty, where Magneto has already begun transferring his powers to Rogue. Wolverine reaches the machine just in time. Cyclops lands a shot on Magneto, giving Logan the opening to shatter the device and save Rogue by pressing his hand to her face, letting her absorb his healing factor before it's too late. Magneto is captured and locked away in a prison cell built entirely out of plastic. No metal, no way for him to use his powers to escape. The chess match between 2 old friends continues, but now it's through the walls of a cell. 3 years later, a mutant named Kurt Wagner, known as Nightcrawler, a man who can vanish and reappear anywhere in the blink of an eye, infiltrates the White House and nearly reaches the president before being stopped. The attack sent the country into a panic, but Nightcrawler wasn't acting on his own, he was being controlled. Stryker, the same William Stryker who turned Logan into a living weapon, had put him under mind control, used him as a puppet to stage the whole thing. A false flag designed to turn the government against mutants and give Stryker the authorization he needed to launch a military assault on Xavier's mansion. And it worked. And Stryker hit from 2 sides at once. While Xavier and Cyclops were away visiting Magneto in prison, Stryker had a trap waiting for them there. Xavier was captured before he even knew what was happening. At the same time, Stryker's soldiers stormed the mansion, raiding the school, capturing students, and stripping Cerebro for parts. Cerebro is Xavier's most powerful tool, a massive amplification system built deep beneath the mansion. Xavier is already one of the most powerful telepaths alive. He can read minds, project thoughts, even control people if he chooses to, but his range has limits. Cerebro changes that. It's a spherical chamber that takes Xavier's brainwaves and extends them across the entire globe. When he puts on that helmet and focuses, he can feel every conscious mind on the planet simultaneously, billions of people, all at once. He can find one specific person in a crowd of 8 billion. That's what Stryker came for. By the time anyone realized what had happened, Stryker had everything he needed, the most powerful telepath on Earth, and the machine to amplify his mind. Here's the thing about Stryker, the man who ran Team X, who built the Weapon X program, who spent his entire career using mutants as tools. His own son was one. Jason Stryker was born a mutant with the power to create illusions so real they could trap a person inside their own mind.
Years before any of this, Stryker sent Jason to Xavier's school hoping for a cure.
Xavier refused. He said there was nothing to cure, so Stryker pulled him out, but Jason's powers spiraled. After that, Jason turned bitter. He started using his powers against his own parents, planting visions in their heads, tormenting them day after day. His mother couldn't take it. The images broke her. She didn't survive. After that, Stryker locked his son away. And after 3 Mile Island fell apart, after Logan destroyed everything Stryker had built, he went back to his son. He unfroze him, hollowed out his mind, and turned him into a tool, just like he did with every other mutant he ever touched. By the time we see Jason again, he's a grown man in a wheelchair, empty, mute, completely under his father's control. The boy Stryker once sent to Xavier hoping for a cure had become his most powerful weapon. His plan was to use Cerebro against the very people it was built to protect. Imagine that same system, that same connection to every mind on Earth, weaponized. Instead of finding mutants, it attacks them. Every mutant brain on the planet lights up in agony at the same time. That's what Stryker was trying to do. Use Jason's illusion powers to brainwash Xavier and turn the most powerful telepath alive into a weapon against his own people. One moment, and every mutant on Earth would be gone. For the first time, the X-Men had no choice but to work alongside their greatest enemy. While all of this was happening, Magneto had found his way out. Mystique, still loyal to Eric, had gotten close to one of his prison guards and injected the man with liquid iron without him even knowing. The next time that guard walked into Magneto's plastic cell, Eric sensed it, metal, flowing through the man's bloodstream. He pulled it out, shaped it, and tore his way through the prison that was supposed to be inescapable. Free, and with his own reasons for wanting Stryker gone, Magneto joined forces with Xavier's team. Together, they infiltrated Stryker's base inside the dam at Alkali Lake. They managed to free Xavier and stop the machine, but the battle damaged the dam, and the waters began to break through. As the team scrambled to escape in the X-Jet, the engines failed. The flood was seconds away from swallowing them all. That's when Jean Grey stepped off the jet. Jean was one of the X-Men's most powerful members, a telepath and telekinetic who could move objects with her mind. She held back the wall of water with everything she had, lifting the jet above the flood while the dam collapsed around her. She activated the engines from the outside, gave her team the chance to escape, and then let the water take her. Jean Grey was gone. But here's what no one knew at the time, not even Jean herself. When Charles Xavier first met Jean as a child, he sensed something inside her that terrified him. Her telekinetic and telepathic abilities were beyond anything he had ever encountered. Raw, uncontrollable, and growing. So Xavier made a choice that he would carry with him for the rest of his life. He placed psychic barriers in Jean's mind, mental walls designed to contain the full extent of her power. Jean grew up thinking she was strong, but manageable. She never knew that what she could access was only a fraction of what lived inside her. What she did at Alkali Lake, holding back an entire dam, lifting a jet, manipulating matter at a level she had never reached before, that wasn't just Jean pushing past her limits. That was the first crack in Xavier's barriers. And deep beneath the surface of Alkali Lake, something was already stirring. 3 years after Alkali Lake, a pharmaceutical company called Worthington Labs makes an announcement that changes everything. They've developed a way to suppress the X gene, a permanent treatment that strips a mutant of their powers entirely. They're calling it the Cure. And this doesn't come out of nowhere. Years earlier, a boy named Warren Worthington III woke up one day to find something growing out of his back. White, feathered wings pushing through his skin. He didn't tell anyone. He locked himself in the bathroom and tried to remove them himself, scraping and pulling, feathers scattered across the floor. His father heard him in there and broke the door open. He saw the wings, and the look on his face said everything. The boy looked up at his father, and all he could say was, "Dad, I'm sorry." That image never left the father. Warren Worthington II poured everything, his money, his company, his obsession, into developing a way to suppress the mutant gene entirely. 10 years later, when the cure was ready, Worthington Labs announced it to the world. The source of the cure turned out to be a young boy named Jimmy, also known as Leech, whose mutation naturally cancels out the abilities of any mutant near him. His DNA became the foundation for everything, and Worthington Labs kept him housed in a facility on Alcatraz Island. And Warren's father chose his own son to be the first test subject, right there in the company's labs. Warren went along with it, not because he wanted to, but because part of him still wanted to make his father proud. They stood him up in a harness, strapped his arms down with leather restraints, orderlies on either side holding him in place. The needles were ready. But the moment it became real, something broke. Warren looked at his father and said, "No, it's what you want." Then he tore through the restraints, knocked the orderlies aside, spread his wings wide, and flew straight through the window. He never went back. He chose what he was over what his father wanted him to be. The announcement hits the mutant world like a shockwave, and it doesn't land the same way for everyone. Think about Rogue, the girl who found out what she was because she kissed her boyfriend and almost put him in the ground. She hasn't felt another person's skin since that day. Every handshake, every hug, every moment of contact that normal people take for granted, all of it taken from her. Now, someone's standing on national television telling her there's a way to get all of that back. She doesn't see politics. She sees a life she's been locked out of since she was a teenager. But walk into Xavier's school and say the word cure and watch what happens. The word cure implies sickness, implies something is wrong with you. Storm says it plainly. Since when did they become a disease? These are people who grew up being told by Xavier that their powers are gifts, that being a mutant is the next step in human evolution, that they should be proud of what they are. And now the world is offering to erase it. To them, the cure isn't hope. It's an insult dressed up as compassion. And then there's Eric. Magneto doesn't see an insult. He sees a weapon. He's seen this before. Not the science, but the logic behind it. A government identifies a group of people as different, then offers a solution to make them normal. Eric Lensher knows exactly where that road leads. He lived it. And here's the thing, he's not wrong. The military does eventually weaponize the cure, loading it into darts and firing them at mutants on the battlefield. Everything Eric warned about comes true. So he starts building an army, rallying every mutant willing to fight for their right to exist as they are. And in the process of freeing imprisoned mutants to join his cause, something happens that shows exactly who Eric Lensher is when it counts. Mystique, the woman who has been by his side for decades, who broke him out of prison, who has been his most loyal soldier, throws herself in front of a cure dart meant for him. It hits her. Her powers vanish. Her blue skin fades to something ordinary. She's lying there, looking up at the man she gave everything for. And Magneto looks at her, really looks at her, and walks away. He doesn't kneel. He doesn't say goodbye. She's no longer one of them, and that's all it takes. Decades of loyalty gone in 1 second. And that tells you more about Magneto than any speech he's ever given.
But the cure isn't the only thing shaking this world apart. Cyclops hasn't been the same since Alkali Lake. The man who led the X-Men, who always had a plan, who held the team together when no one else could, has been falling apart ever since Jean went under that water. He can't let it go, so he goes back. He rides his motorcycle to Alkali Lake, walks to the edge of the water, and stands where she disappeared. Her voice is in his head, louder and louder, and the grief just takes over. He rips off his glasses and lets his optic blast tear into the lake. All that pain, all that loss, just pouring out of him. And that's when the water starts to move. Something stirs beneath the surface, and Jean Grey rises from the lake. She's standing right in front of him. Scott can barely process what he's seeing. They embrace. She tells him to take off his glasses, to let her see his eyes. He says no, he can't, he'll hurt her. But she tells him she can control it now. She takes the glasses off herself. For the first time, he's looking at her with his own eyes, and nothing bad is happening. They kiss, and then her expression changes. Something behind her eyes shifts, and just like that, Cyclops is gone. The leader of the X-Men, taken in a moment he thought was a miracle. Back at the mansion, Xavier feels it. Something terrible just happened to Scott, and he sends Wolverine and Storm to Alkali Lake immediately. When they arrive, all that's left are floating rocks, Scott's glasses drifting on the water, and Jean lying unconscious. They bring her back to the mansion and put her in the infirmary. That's when Xavier tells them the truth about what he did. Remember those psychic barriers Xavier placed in Jean's mind when she was a child? The walls he built to contain the full extent of her power? What Jean did at Alkali Lake, holding back that dam, that was the first crack. And now those walls have shattered completely. What came out the other side is something Xavier calls the Phoenix, a second personality born from the part of Jean's power that was never meant to see the light. Logan doesn't take it well. The idea that Xavier has been inside Jean's head her entire life, controlling what she can and can't access, disgusts him. But that argument gets cut short. Logan goes to check on Jean alone, and when she wakes up, she doesn't remember what happened to Scott. She starts acting differently, saying things Jean would never say, trying to pull Logan in. He realizes this isn't Jean anymore, this is the Phoenix. And before anyone can stop it, the Phoenix lashes out, knocks Logan unconscious, and escapes the mansion. Xavier tries to reach her telepathically, but she's blocking him. He can feel how strong she's become, and he knows where she's going. She's heading back to the place where it all started, her parents' house, the same house Xavier and Eric visited when she was a little girl. On the other side of things, Callisto, one of Magneto's lieutenants who can sense mutant power levels, picks up a Class 5 mutant signature, and Magneto knows immediately who it is. Both sides race to Jean's childhood home, and they arrive at practically the same time. Xavier tells Logan and Storm to wait outside while he goes in alone, and then Magneto walks up behind them, telling Charles he was right about this one all along. Xavier walks in and tries to bring Jean back, talking to her the way he always has, trying to reach the woman behind the power. Magneto is right there too, but he's not trying to save Jean. He's trying to recruit the Phoenix. He wants that power on his side, and Xavier pushes harder, trying to break through to the real Jean. For a moment, it almost works. But the Phoenix doesn't want to be contained again. The house begins to shake, objects start floating, and then the Phoenix turns on Xavier, the most powerful mind on the planet, the man who built everything the X-Men stand on, the teacher who shaped an entire generation of mutants, is erased from existence right there in that living room. Jean leaves with Magneto, and the X-Men are left with an empty wheelchair and no one to fill it. With Xavier gone and the Phoenix at his side, Magneto makes his move on Alcatraz, and the way he does it tells you everything about the scale of power we're dealing with. He walks up to the Golden Gate Bridge, rips the entire thing off its foundation, and drops it onto Alcatraz Island to give his army a direct path straight to the cure facility. The goal is simple: wipe out the source of the cure so it can never be used against mutant kind. The military is already there, equipped with cure darts made from plastic. No metal, nothing Magneto can manipulate. The Brotherhood charges across the bridge, and the X-Men arrive to meet them. And for a while, it's a full-scale war on that island. But during the chaos, Beast manages to get close enough to hit Magneto with the cure. And just like that, Eric's powers vanish. The man who just moved an entire bridge with his mind is suddenly just a man standing on a battlefield with nothing. But the real threat was never Magneto. The Phoenix emerges, and Jean begins tearing apart everything around her. The island, the buildings, the soldiers, the mutants, everything starts breaking down at the molecular level. No one can get near her. No one except Logan. His healing factor is the only thing keeping him alive as he walks toward her through the wave of destruction, his skin tearing apart and rebuilding with every single step he takes. He pushes through it, step by step, because he's the only one who can. He reaches Jean, and for one moment, she's there. Not the Phoenix, but the real Jean. She looks at him, and she knows what she's asking. She begs him to stop her, to free her from what she's become. Logan tells her he loves her, and then he does what no one else could. When the dust settles, the X-Men have lost everything. Jean Grey, Xavier, Cyclops, all of them gone. Magneto is powerless, and the team is broken. Storm takes over the school, and Logan stays on as a teacher. And Rogue, the girl who could never touch anyone, makes a choice that says everything about what this world does to people. She takes the cure, not because she was forced, and not because she was weaponized, but because she wanted to hold her boyfriend's hand. She wanted to kiss someone without putting them in a coma. For the first time, she and Bobby touch skin to skin.
That moment is quiet, but it hits hard. She gave up a part of who she was just to feel normal. But the story doesn't end there. Two things happen after the dust settles that change everything. In a park somewhere, a depowered Eric Lensher sits alone at a chessboard. He reaches toward a metal piece, and it trembles. Just barely, just for a second, but it moves. The cure that was supposed to be permanent may not be permanent at all. If Magneto's powers are coming back, that means every mutant who was hit with a cure dart on that island could get their abilities back too. The cure was never a solution. It was a delay. And then there's Xavier. Earlier that year, before any of this happened, Xavier had taught a class to his students about the ethics of transferring a person's consciousness from one body into another. He showed them a video from Dr. Moira McTaggart about a comatose patient with no mind of his own, a body that was alive but had never had a conscious thought. He asked his students what they would do if they could move someone's mind into that body. It seemed like a philosophy lesson at the time, but after the Phoenix erased him, something happened. That same comatose patient, the one from the video, suddenly spoke for the first time in his life, and the voice that came out was Charles Xavier's. His body was gone, but his mind, the most powerful mind on the planet, had found a new home. The man who built the X-Men, who trained an entire generation of mutants to believe in coexistence, who gave his life trying to save Jean Grey, was still out there somewhere. And he would be needed again, sooner than anyone thinks. 7 years after Alcatraz, Logan has disappeared. No X-Men, no mansion, no mission, nothing. He's living alone in the Canadian wilderness, a man who doesn't want to be found. And every night, Jean Grey is there, in his head. The woman he loved, the woman he had to put down to save everyone else. That kind of weight doesn't get lighter with time, it just settles deeper. But someone finds him. A young mutant named Yukio tracks Logan down with a message from a man he hasn't seen in decades. Yukio has a gift of her own. She can see how people are going to pass before it happens. She tells Logan that a man named Ichiro Yoshida is requesting his presence in Japan, and that Yoshida is running out of time. Remember the young Japanese soldier Logan shielded in that pit at Nagasaki? That soldier survived because of Logan, and he never forgot that debt. In the decades that followed, Yoshida built an empire. He became the head of one of the most powerful technology corporations in Japan, a man with more influence and wealth than most people could imagine. But by 2013, he's an old man at the end of his life, riddled with disease, and he's been thinking about Logan's gift for a very long time. When Logan arrives in Japan, Yoshida makes him an offer. He says he can transfer Logan's healing factor out of his body, free him from the immortality that has turned his life into an endless cycle of loss. Logan would finally be able to grow old and eventually find peace. In return, Yoshida would receive the healing factor and use it to save his own life. Logan turns him down. He doesn't trust it, and he's not ready to hand over the one thing that's kept him alive through everything. But that night, while Logan sleeps, Yoshida's personal physician, a mutant named Viper, injects something into his body, a robotic parasite that attaches to his heart and starts suppressing his healing factor. Logan doesn't realize it yet, but from that moment on, he's vulnerable in a way he hasn't been in over 100 years. The next morning, Yoshida is announced to have passed. At the funeral, everything falls apart. Yoshida had a son named Shingen, but he didn't trust him with the Empire. Shingen had become more interested in power and politics than in honoring the family's legacy, and Yoshida saw that clearly. So he skipped his own son entirely and left everything to Shingen's daughter Mariko, his granddaughter. But here's the thing. Long before Yoshida passed, Shingen had already arranged for Mariko to marry a man named Noburo Mori, a corrupt politician serving as Japan's Minister of Justice. It had nothing to do with love. It was a political deal. Shingen's way of locking in connections while he waited to take over. He assumed the Empire would come to him, and Mariko would stay under his control. But the will changed everything. Once Mariko inherited, she could cancel the wedding, cut Shingen out entirely, and run things on her own terms. Shingen realized he was about to lose everything he'd spent years building toward, and that's when he went to the Yakuza. They make their move at the funeral, and Logan steps in to protect her, but he's getting hurt and not healing the way he should. For the first time in his life, Logan is fighting while his body is actually breaking down. He bleeds and it doesn't stop. He takes hits and they stay with him. Logan gets Mariko out and the two go on the run together, hiding in the countryside while Shingen and the Yakuza keep hunting them. During this time, Logan is getting worse. Every wound lingers, every fight costs him more than it should, and he can't figure out why. What he doesn't know yet is that without his healing factor constantly compensating, the adamantium bonded to his skeleton is slowly poisoning him from the inside. The same metal that made him nearly indestructible is now working against him. He and Mariko grow closer while he tries to keep her alive, but eventually, Shingen's people catch up and take her. Meanwhile, Yukio has a vision of Logan dying. She tracks him down to warn him. Now Logan knows two things. Mariko is gone, and something is wrong with his body. He and Yukio grab one of the kidnappers and get a name out of him. Noburo Mori, Mariko's fiancé. They go straight to his apartment and Logan shakes the truth out of him. Mori confesses that Shingen was behind all of it, that he conspired with the Yakuza to have Mariko taken out because Yoshida left the Empire to her instead of him. Shingen had been bleeding the company dry, covering his father's obsession with prolonging his life, stockpiling adamantium in a lab up north, and he expected to be rewarded for his loyalty. Instead, Yoshida skipped him entirely. That's what set everything in motion. From there, Logan and Yukio head to Yoshida's estate looking for Mariko. When they arrive, the place is a mess. Bodies on the floor. The Black Clan, a group of ninjas sworn to protect the Yoshida family, had stormed in and taken Mariko. Their leader, a man named Harada, who was also Mariko's former lover, moved her to a research facility somewhere in the mountains. Viper had been there too, and on her way out, she poisoned Shingen, leaving him wounded but alive. Logan wants to go after Mariko immediately, but he can barely stand. He's been bleeding and not healing for days, and it's only getting worse. They're standing in the estate of a man who spent his final years surrounded by every piece of medical technology money could buy. Logan scans his own body and finds a robotic parasite clamped directly onto his heart, suppressing his healing factor from the inside. Logan cuts himself open and tears the device out of his own chest, which nearly ends him in the process. That's when Shingen comes for him. Wounded, desperate, wearing his family's traditional samurai armor, Shingen blames Logan for everything. His father's obsession with mutants, with Logan specifically, is what ruined this family. Yukio holds him off long enough for Logan to recover, and once his healing factor kicks back in, Logan finishes the fight with Shingen. Now back to full strength, Logan heads for the facility in the mountains. He knows it's a trap, but he goes anyway. When he gets there, Harada's ninjas overwhelm him, capture him, and drag him inside. They strap him into a machine, and that's where he finds out the truth. Yoshida isn't gone at all. He faked everything. The old man had built himself a massive suit of adamantium armor, the Silver Samurai, and his plan all along was to extract Logan's healing factor by force. Everything. Yukio's mission, the offer, the funeral, all of it was a setup to get Logan to Japan and take what he wanted. The Silver Samurai's adamantium blades are superheated, able to cut through anything, including Logan's claws. But Logan doesn't go down easy. He breaks free and fights back, but the samurai is unlike anything he's faced. It severs Logan's adamantium claws clean off, exposing the bone underneath, and then clamps down on the stumps to begin draining Logan's healing factor directly out of his body. Yoshida starts to de-age right in front of him, getting younger with every second as Logan's regeneration is pulled out of him. But Mariko intervenes, driving Logan's own severed claws into Yoshida, and Logan's body does something it hasn't done since the Weapon X procedure. His bone claws grow back. The original claws, the ones he was born with, push through the metal stumps, and Logan finishes the fight for good. After the fight, Logan has one final vision of Jean, but this time, instead of being pulled into the guilt, he lets her go. He accepts what happened and chooses to keep living. Yukio stays by his side as his self-appointed bodyguard, and Logan leaves Japan a different man than when he arrived, still carrying scars, but no longer drowning in them. And now he's walking around with bone claws instead of adamantium, which changes things going forward. 2 years later, Logan is passing through an airport when the metal objects around him start shaking. Coins floating, keys rattling, luggage shifting on the conveyor belt. He knows exactly what that means. He turns around and Magneto is standing right behind him, powers fully restored, proving that the cure was never permanent. Eric tells Logan that something is coming, a threat to every mutant alive, and he needs Logan's help. Logan asks why he would ever trust him, and then every person in the airport freezes in place, completely still, as if time itself stopped. Charles Xavier rolls through the crowd in his wheelchair, alive. looking exactly like himself. Logan can barely process it. The last time he saw this man, the Phoenix had taken him from them. Xavier looks at Logan and says, "As I told you once before, you are not the only one with gifts." Now, we established that Xavier transferred his consciousness into a comatose patient, a completely different person. So why does he look exactly like Charles Xavier? Same face, same voice, same wheelchair? The timeline never explains it, no one ever asks, and Xavier never offers anything beyond that one line. It's a plot hole, and we're calling it one. What matters is that Charles Xavier is back, and the fact that both he and Magneto have come to find Logan together, two men who have spent their entire lives on opposite sides, tells you everything you need to know. But the timeline never tells us what happened after that airport. We don't know what they tried, we don't know how they fought back, and we don't know how it all fell apart. All we know is that by 2023, it didn't matter. The world is gone. Not in ruin, not in decline, gone. Remember what we told you at the very beginning, how Mystique's DNA was reverse engineered into the Sentinels, giving them the ability to adapt to any mutant power in real time? This is where that road ends. Those machines have hunted down nearly every mutant on the planet, and they didn't stop there. Humans who carried the potential to produce mutant offspring were targeted too, along with anyone who tried to protect them. Entire cities emptied out, civilizations collapsed, and what's left of the mutant population is scattered, hiding, running from machines that cannot be beaten. The only reason any mutants are still alive at all is because of Kitty Pryde. Kitty's original power was phasing, the ability to pass through solid matter. But over the years of fighting for survival, she developed something entirely new. She figured out how to project a person's consciousness backward in time into their younger body. The way it worked was simple but brilliant. Every time the Sentinels tracked them down, Kitty would send Bishop, one of the surviving mutants, back a few days into the past with full knowledge of exactly where and when the Sentinels would strike. Bishop would warn the group they'd relocate before the machines ever arrived, and the attack would never happen. They'd been running this loop over and over, staying one step ahead by rewriting the last few days every time the Sentinels closed in. That's the only reason anyone made it this far. But by the time the last survivors gather in a monastery in China, it's clear this can't go on. Xavier, Magneto, Storm, Wolverine, Kitty Pryde, Iceman, Colossus, Bishop, Blink, Warpath, Sunspot, and a handful of others. The Sentinels are getting faster, smarter, and there are fewer places left to hide. The short jumps aren't enough anymore, so Xavier proposes something far more extreme. Don't go back days, go back decades. Use the same power Kitty has been using to save them in short bursts, but push it all the way to 1973, to the moment before Mystique takes out Trask. If that one decision changes, Mystique is never captured, the Sentinels never get her DNA, and this future never happens. The problem is that going back 50 years would tear apart anyone's mind. The only person who could survive the process is Logan, because his healing factor can repair the neurological damage in real time. So Kitty sends Wolverine's consciousness back into his younger body in 1973, and he wakes up with his original bone claws, no adamantium, in a completely different world. The 1973 he finds is bleak. Xavier's school has been closed for years, most of the students drafted into Vietnam. Hank McCoy is still there, but Xavier himself is a broken man. He's been taking a serum that suppresses his telepathy in exchange for letting him walk again. The trade tells you everything about where his head is at. He'd rather have his legs than his mind. Magneto is locked in a concrete cell beneath the Pentagon, accused of curving the bullet that took out President Kennedy. And Mystique is already on Trask's trail, moving through the shadows with nothing but rage and a list. Logan has to pull all of these people back together. He convinces Xavier and Beast to help him break Magneto out of the Pentagon, and they recruit a young mutant named Peter Maximoff, a speedster whose ability to move faster than anything alive makes the prison break possible. But once Magneto is free, he starts playing his own game. He doesn't just want to stop the Sentinel program, he wants to demonstrate mutant superiority. At the Paris Peace Accords, where Mystique is about to make her move on Trask, Magneto tries to handle the situation his own way by turning on Mystique himself, reasoning that if she's gone, her DNA can never be harvested. She escapes, but the damage is done. The world has now seen mutants fighting each other in broad daylight, and Nixon greenlights the Sentinel program and schedules a public unveiling on the White House lawn, a show of force to prove humanity can protect itself. Magneto sees this as the moment to send a message of his own, not just to the government, but to the entire world. Mystique is still out there, and she hasn't given up on Trask. She's making her way toward Washington with the same mission she's had from the start. And Logan, Xavier, and Beast are racing to get there first, trying to reach her before she does something that can't be undone. Everything collides at the White House. Xavier, Logan, and Beast are in the crowd searching for Mystique when Xavier spots her, disguised as a Secret Service agent. He telepathically freezes her before she can make her move and starts trying to talk her down. But before he can finish, Magneto arrives. He drops an entire baseball stadium around the White House as a perimeter, commandeers the Sentinel prototypes, and turns them against the humans. In the chaos, Logan goes after Magneto, but Magneto drives metal rebar straight through his body and hurls him into the Potomac River. Logan is out. Nixon, Trask, and Mystique, still disguised as Secret Service, are rushed into an underground bunker beneath the White House. But Magneto rips the entire bunker out of the ground, tearing it from the building and exposing everyone inside. Meanwhile, back in 2023, the Sentinels have found the monastery. The last X-Men are fighting for their lives, and they are losing, falling one by one. The future and the past are running out at the same time. With the bunker torn open and cameras rolling, Mystique steps out disguised as Nixon, a gun behind her back. But Magneto is still standing between her and Trask, and as long as he's in control, no one is getting close to anyone. While he's distracted dealing with one of his own Sentinels, Mystique takes her shot. A plastic gun, no metal, nothing he can sense coming. She grazes his neck and knocks him out. Now it's just her and Trask. This is the moment she's been building towards since 1973, but Xavier reaches her telepathically. He doesn't command her, he doesn't control her. He asks her to choose. And Mystique, the woman who has spent her life being told what she is and what she should be, makes the choice on her own. She lowers it, and she spares Trask, all of it happening on camera with the entire world watching. A mutant just saved the President of the United States. In that single moment, public perception shifts. The Sentinel program is canceled. Trask is arrested for selling military secrets to foreign governments, and the future begins to rewrite itself. Back in 2023, seconds before the Sentinels wipe out the last survivors, the timeline dissolves. Everything changes. Wolverine wakes up in a bed at Xavier's school, and the world he sees is nothing like the one he left. The mansion is full of students, Beast is walking the halls, and Storm is teaching. And then he sees Jean Grey and Scott Summers, alive, going about their day as if nothing ever happened. All of it. The Phoenix, Alcatraz, the Cure, all of it either happened differently or never happened at all. Xavier finds Logan standing in the hallway, barely able to process what he's seeing. And when Logan tells him the last thing he remembers is drowning, Xavier understands exactly what's going on. See, when Kitty sent Logan's mind back to 1973, she put his future consciousness into his younger body. That younger body lived from 1973 all the way to 2023 in the new timeline. But it wasn't the same Logan driving. The Logan who woke up in that hallway went straight from drowning in a river in 1973 to standing in Xavier's school in 2023. Everything in between, 50 years of history in a completely different timeline. He never experienced any of it. Wolverine made it back, and the timeline has been rewritten from 1973 forward. But there's one more thing. Back in 1973, after Logan was thrown into the Potomac, someone pulls him out of the water. It looks like William Stryker, the same man who turned Logan into a weapon the first time around. But if you were paying attention, you'd notice something off. That's not Stryker. It's Mystique wearing his face. Why she saved him, what she did with him after, and how Logan still ended up with Adamantium bonded to his skeleton again, we'll get back to all of that. This is the new Earth 10,005. Everything from this point on follows a different path. The events we covered before, the Cure, the Phoenix, Alcatraz, Xavier's consciousness transfer, none of that plays out the same way in this new timeline. What happens instead is an entirely different sequence of events, and it starts with something ancient waking up.